Hello guys, and a very warm welcome to my channel. I'm Steven, and today we're making Greek pizza boats, aka Peinirli. Now, before we start, let's have a quick look at what a Peinirli is. So, Peinirli is a Turkish word and it means with cheese. And the Peinirli is a variation of the Turkish pide, which was brought to Greece by the Pontic Greek refugees around the 1920s. Now, fillings can vary, but the classic filling in Greece is butter and hard cheese like graviera. But if you don't have graviera, you can easily substitute this with Gruyere or any other hard cheese of your liking. Today I'm going to do a couple of different variations for you guys, but the key thing to remember here is that you can fill this with pretty much anything you want, whether it's sweet or savory. Just let your imagination run wild and please enjoy the process. So for this recipe I will be using the following ingredients, which are 420 grams of bread flour, 80 grams of all-purpose flour, 10 grams or 1 tablespoon of salt, a whole egg, a teaspoon of honey, a pack of active dry yeast or about 7 grams, 100 milliliters of milk and 120 milliliters of water, and 50 grams of melted butter. Now, I know that most of you don't have access to a bench mixer, so we're gonna do today's recipe entirely by hand. We're gonna knead the dough by hand, so bear with me. And now, before I start tossing everything in a bowl and mixing everything together, I need to first activate my yeast. And what do I mean by activating the yeast? So, the yeast is an organism and it needs to wake up. It needs to start eating the sugars, and that's gonna help it develop all the flavors and also make the dough rise. So, to activate our yeast, we're gonna make a sort of Peinirlis, which is a type of Preferment. So, a regular Peinirlis requires 100% hydration, which means equal parts of water to equal parts of flour. So to make our Peinirlis, we're gonna first take all our liquids, and they need to be warm, not too hot because they're gonna kill the yeast, but also not too cold because it's gonna slow down the whole process. So we're gonna mix our liquids, then we take the honey, and finally the yeast. Toss everything in there, and we want to make sure that we dissolve everything right away. So we mix. And this is our yeast with the honey, which is gonna feed off. So we put this on the side, and then we take a scale and we take our flour. We mix together. Ideally you want to sieve this with a fine mesh sieve, but today we're skipping that. We're just using a whisk and we're breaking down any lumps, and also we're incorporating the flours together. So after we're done with mixing our flours, we're gonna take the yeast mixture again. And since this recipe requires 100% hydration for the Peinirlis, we're going to put about 200 grams of the mixture directly into the yeast and mix it thoroughly. Get rid of any lumps. So basically this is the consistency you're looking for. It's like a thick pancake butter. So now that we're done with that, we're gonna cover it with a towel and we're gonna move it in a nice and warm spot. Now, because it's the Netherlands and it's almost December, I'm gonna put this on top of my boiler for about half hour. It's gonna be perfect. It's gonna double the size. It's gonna have very nice bubbles, which means that the yeast is active, it's awake, and it's doing its job just as we want it. So it's been already half an hour. We can see our Peinirlis looks lovely. It's double the size, has nice beautiful bubbles, so it's aerated, And now we're gonna go ahead and mix it with the rest of the dough. So we're gonna take the flour mixture, which we had, and we're gonna now add the salt in it. The reason why we didn't add the salt before that is because salt and yeast don't go very well together, and salt usually kills the yeast. So it's better to avoid the flour and put it in the end. So off we go with the flour. We take our 1 egg. And then we have the 50 grams of melted butter all in there. And now let me grab a fork and we get to the mixing. I got my fork. Let's go ahead and mix everything together. So we mix. So now at this point, I'm gonna make a hole in the middle. I'm gonna push everything on the sides. And here's where I'm gonna place my pulleys. So now we're just gonna mix everything in the bowl, and then we're gonna transfer everything on our surface. Just make sure that your surface is nice, clean and disinfected. You don't want any particles of dust, any type of hair. You don't want anything going into your dough, basically. So mix, and at this point I'm just lightly gonna dust my surface with a little bit of flour, and then I'm gonna drop everything. Another key thing to mention here is that every dough is different, every flour is different, and a lot of things can affect the final product, such as moisture in the air, temperature. So always make sure that when you work with the dough, have a small bowl of water on the side, and you might need to add some as you go. So now I'm just gonna mix everything together. It's gonna be a bit sticky in the beginning, but that's totally fine, because as you work the dough, everything's gonna come together. The gluten in the flour is gonna activate, it's gonna start stretching, it's gonna be a nice and beautiful dough. So we'll take everything together, just work our way. So as you can see, I'm just taking everything together in one bowl, and then I'm just pushing everything down, pull back. So you can already see that my dough is coming off my working surface. It's becoming a nice solid ball. You're gonna have to work around 5 minutes with it, no more than that. Basically you're gonna do the same if you're using a stand mixer. Just put in the stand mixer, everything together, 5 to 6 minutes with a hook attachment, and that's gonna be your dough. Now, since we're going by hand, we want to make sure that everything is nicely incorporated and that our flour is all dissolved, and we have a nice uniform dough. Basically that's it. Now that we have our dough, we're just gonna shape it and we're gonna let it rest for another hour or so. So basically, again, until it doubles the size. So just what I'm gonna do now is basically I'm gonna put my dough right in front of me, and I'm gonna shape it into a nice bowl. So what you're gonna do now is basically with the bottom of your hand and with your pinky finger, basically, you're just gonna rotate and then push the dough underneath. So you're gonna do this nice circular motion and just push in. If you feel more comfortable, you can start going faster. What you're looking in the end is basically this. So you're transferring all the dough underneath. So basically you want the dough to spring back. We can see it's coming back to its original shape. So now we're gonna take a clean bowl, put a little bit of olive oil in it, just a tiny bit, and then spread it all around with our fingers and onto the sides. So the reason why we're doing that is so we can prevent the dough from sticking to the bowl while it's proofing. So take a dough, we put it in a bowl, we take a towel, and it goes back to our warm spot. Go rest for another hour or so, and I'll see you then. In the meantime, you can do whatever you want. Go grab a beer, go take a shower, go do the shopping you forgot to do, like me, and yeah, see you in a bit. So, it's been an hour already. As we can see, the dough has doubled the size. It looks beautiful. So, now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna roll it out and portion it. Place the dough on our surface, on our workbench. We squeeze the air out, just a little bit. And then we roll it into this cylinder here. And what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take our bench scraper, or if you don't have one, that's totally fine, you can use a knife, and we're gonna portion it. So regarding the portions, it's totally up to you. You can do small ones, you can do big ones, you can do even like party bites, like small sizes, around 50-60 grams, I would say. But so for these ones, I'm gonna do a bit of everything. I'm gonna do some big ones, and then we're gonna do also some small ones. So we start with the small ones. So around 50 to 60 grams, as I said. So this one is 58 grams, which is fine. You don't want everything to be perfect. You just want to be around those numbers. So it's 200. I'm gonna add a bit more. 220 is fine. So what am I doing now that I have two pieces? Basically, I just roll them together, and I can, as I did before, I'm gonna make another bowl. So I roll it till the top is nice and smooth. You can see now that my top is smooth. So I'm gonna place it on the side. So now again, with the small ones, I'm just gonna fold everything underneath. Squeeze the ends together. And then we're just gonna cover it with our fingers. We're not gonna put a lot of pressure. And then we're gonna start moving our hands in circular motions. So basically it's the same thing as the first technique I showed you, but it's a bit easier doing it with one hand when the portion is so small. That's it. Tiny Peinirli. these are our Peinirlis, ready to get some rest. We just cover them with a towel and let them be for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, it's been 10 minutes, my dough is ready, it's rested, and now we can basically start rolling our little balls out. So, I know that some of you don't have a rolling pin, that's totally fine. You can get any cylindrical object, basically. Let's say like even this kind of our local brewery here that is definitely not sponsoring me for this video, but please consider to do so. And we can also do it by hand, which I'm gonna do for you guys tonight. So, lightly dusting and flattening our balls into discs. And now basically we're gonna, with our thumbs, go on the side of the dough, squeeze a little bit and pull. With this one, basically I'm pulling this, with this one I'm squeezing and I'm rotating. So this is the movement, and I go from the outside. As I'm doing that, I'm moving to the inside. Lightly squeeze and pull, squeeze and pull. As you can see, my disc is turning bigger in diameter, and at this point we can start just stretching it by hand. Again, be gentle, very light. You don't want to rip the dough, you don't want to make any holes on the dough, just stretch it lightly. Make sure it's nice and even thickness on all sides. So, this is our base for the Peinirli, and now you can get as creative as you want. I can show you a couple of different variations here. I have a couple of different ingredients which we're gonna play with, but you get the idea. Be creative and enjoy the process. So, I'm gonna do a classic now, which is basically a bit of butter, hard cheese grated. Didn't find any Graviera around, so I just went with the basic Gruyere. We're putting everything on the center, tiny bit more because we love cheese, and you should love cheese too. And now you just fold the sides towards the middle. You take one end, you twist, and then you take the other end and then you twist it again. So one end goes inside, the other end over on top. Squeeze the ends together gently, pull. And this is your first Peinirli. Doesn't look the prettiest, but trust me, as soon as this thing bakes, it puffs, the walls on the sides, they open up, and it's a nice, beautiful pizza boat, basically. It starts with nice and gooey mozzarella cheese. Now we're gonna go to the next one. For this one, we're gonna take our favorite local brewery that's not sponsoring us, and we're just gonna lightly. We want to put even pressure on both sides, not too much on this side or on the other side, because then our dough is not going to be the same thickness, and we need the same thickness. So turn 45 degrees, repeat. You can see it's now sticking because there's some moisture on my can, so I'm just going to lightly dust it with flour, and again very gently, 45 degrees, same thing. Saves you quite a bit of time than doing it by hand. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful. So for the next variation, what I can do is again go the same ingredients as a classic. And then, just because we love cheese, we can get some Dutch Gouda or Gouda, as they call it here in the Netherlands. And then some beautiful creamy mozzarella cheese. And again, fold the sides, twist the ends, squeeze down, pull, open up. That's it. You can either take it by hand, you can take your bench scraper if you feel more comfortable. That's your second peinirli. Now look at the difference. This is by hand, this is with a rolling pin. You can see how smoother and bigger this is in size. It's spread more evenly. The result is going to be pretty much the same, so it doesn't matter. Just for you guys to see. Now, let's make my favorite one. And of course for this one, I'm going to use a big portion. Again, I'm flattening my disc. Take my rolling pin, it lightly does this as well. Same thing as we did with the can of beer, 45 degrees, and roll out. 45 degrees. So for this one, I'll have to grab a spoon first. So this one, we call it the Mediterranean BAKE and Grease. It's my favorite combination. It's basically tomato, olives, peppers, and good old feta. Lots of it. Don't skip the feta. You can substitute the feta with anything. Just go look for some feta. So I'm gonna take a nice teaspoon of regular tomato sauce. Nothing fancy, just crushed tomatoes. I'm just gonna spread it along the middle. I'm gonna take some thinly chopped green bell pepper. Spread this. Our beautiful pitted Kalamata olives. And then the MVP, the feta. We're gonna go everywhere. Don't be greedy with the feta, just put as much as it can hold up. So the bottom layer of the feta is basically gonna just lightly melt, and then the top is gonna get nice caramelized, and you're gonna get like these teeny tiny crunchy bits of feta, which I absolutely adore. Look at that. And this is our big boy. We're gonna do another one of the small ones, but this one is gonna be with a twist. So we have 3 savory peinirlis, and now we're gonna go for the sweet one. So I'm gonna fill this with chocolate spread, some frozen raspberries I have laying around. Can get a bit messy, but trust me, result is worth it, always worth it. So, this is my first batch of Peinirlis, so it's gonna go in the oven around 200 degrees. So you wanna cook this without the fan, very important, and make sure both top and bottom elements are turned on. We're gonna place it in the middle of the rack for around 20 to 25 minutes or until they've buffed and they have this beautiful, nice golden brown color. So guys, it's been 25 minutes and look at that, our Peinirlis are out of the oven. Now, you might get some ends that open up, that's perfectly normal, it's totally fine. The reason for that is your dough was probably too dry, maybe you dusted a lot of flour on it while you were rolling it and shaping it. And how you can avoid that is basically you just dip your fingers in a little bit of water and then just gently massage the ends and then twist them and squeeze them together. But still, that's perfectly edible. Taste is still there. Cheesy, nice and cheesy. And look at that dough. Look at those strings of dough. Oh my god. But I'm gonna skip these two and I'm gonna go directly to my favorite, the Mediterranean. Now, how I like to eat that is put some dry oregano on top. The reason why you put the oregano now and not before you bake it is because the herb is gonna burn, it's gonna taste bitter, you're not gonna like it, it's gonna ruin the end result. And then always fresh olive oil, drizzle everywhere. Now let's get cracking. And look at that, my god. Tastes like home, incredible. So now, let's say you did a recipe, you had a lot of Peinirlis rolled out and you're like, but man, I'm not gonna eat all that. You can easily just toss them in the freezer, take them out whenever you need them, place them in the oven, same procedure. They're gonna be as perfect as if you bake them fresh. So don't hesitate. Now, for our sweet alternative, which yeah, I couldn't hold myself, so sorry about that, guys. I already put some crushed Oreo on top, and then I'm just gonna save a little bit of white chocolate. Dust with some powdered sugar. That's it. That's one sweet variation. You can do many more. Just let your imagination be your limit. So guys, these were the Greek pizza boats, aka Peinirli. I love them. Hope you like them too. Hope you try the recipe. Hit me in the comments if you have any questions. And yeah, please try it out, enjoy, and send me some photos. See you in the next one.
Mama, the recording is over.
Mama would be so proud. My god. Oh.
I think I'm gonna take this one though.
Well, there's plenty more coming out soon. Oh my god.
I mean,
I guess I'll have to wash that out with our rolling pin. I mean, our definitely not sponsored.